Hi everyone, welcome to my office. I'm Gwen King and I'm recording just a few minutes of how COVID-19 has impacted my life. I'm going to stick to the professional here where I think that the impact has been the most obvious. I am relatively new to Omaha. I moved here in 2019 with my mom, coming from Birmingham, Alabama, where I'd been an assistant professor for 8 years at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. When I moved here, I joined the Department of Biology, specifically working with the neuroscience major. In my experience, not very many people have a whole huge number of friends that are professors. Mostly we're just caricatures, usually from bad movies where we did something stupid or weird. So what I want you to know is that my job has two sort of equally important components. Yeah, I teach. That is maybe half of my job, maybe a little less of the expectation of my life. So as a science professor, I run both lecture and lab courses. I am particularly focused on neuroscience and the neuroscience major and its courses, as well as designing new courses, getting those implemented as we expand the major. In addition to that side of my life, I'm also expected to run a research lab. So it is not enough that I teach. I am expected to, on a regular basis, be producing new data that will go into papers, that will go into grants, both to support the research going on in my lab and to help establish a scientific community here at Creighton that is world-renowned. We want to be known, as every university does, wants to be known as a place where great science happens. That happens in individual people's labs. So I, on a routine basis right now, have between 3 and 4 students that help me conduct the research that happens in my lab, where I am interested in understanding the proteins that are involved in brain aging. I have a mouse colony, I have students, and I have my teaching responsibilities. So when COVID-19 hit, I was in the middle of just getting settled, just getting through my first year of teaching and initial training in the lab. And in a matter of from 1 minute to the next, when the email went out closing Creighton, I went from a staff of 4 to just me. And just me with the need to both keep my research lab functioning, my animal colony going, so we didn't have a 6 to 9 month delay if we had to shut that down, as well as keeping my students from complete meltdown in their classes. So I had students that had to go home, but there was no home for them to go home to. They weren't welcome to stay. I had students that had to take care of younger siblings that were also home. I had students that had to get full-time jobs. I had one student that needed 2 full-time jobs because he had a family with 3 small children. So in addition to just moving class online, which sounds easy until you actually have to do it, I also needed to be supportive of the array of problems that came up for just specifically my students. Online teaching is something that is only done well when you design a class to be taught online. And there are very large problems with moving science classes online. Laboratory classes almost can't be moved online and have any sort of equivalent experience. You physically have to do stuff with your hands if you're going to call it a laboratory class. So that was a challenge, but so were the lecture classes. So most of last semester felt like I was on the train as it was wrecking, and it was a matter of how big of a wreck did we have. I think it mostly, the train went off the trail and rolled over, but we all made it out. I think some actual good learning actually happened once we all settled into a new routine. This semester, I have new rules. I have 5,000 contingency plans at any given moment. It is not trivial to teach a hybrid course. Half of your kids present, half of your kids absent. It is not trivial to figure out how overnight you're going to administer a lab practical to someone who's been quarantined. There is a whole lot of stuff that none of us have ever trained or thought or in any way prepared for, that we're having to make decisions about literally in the moment as life's happening. not complaining. I know that for many of you that is also the case, but that's the reality for me. This has not been easy, simple, trivial, and I don't think it's going to be for a very long time. And I guess that's where I sort of am finding myself. I do not like a feeling of things being super uncertain. And I fully understand that the reality of life is that nothing is certain. I am not guaranteed my next breath. I'm not guaranteed that I will wake up tomorrow. But an abstract appreciation of that versus having it smack in your face is very different. And I have had to do a lot of soul searching, Bible searching, prayer, and discussion about the almost feelings of panic that I've had from time to time over the levels of uncertainty in everything, every aspect of my life. So, as you're dealing with what COVID-19 has brought into your life, if that's what you're feeling, know that you're not alone. Hopefully, you already knew that, but I think that the isolation that COVID-19 has brought has made it difficult sometimes to really feel in your gut that you're not alone. I work at a university. On any given day when I'm teaching, I'm seeing hundreds at times of students pass through my doors. None of them have personal conversations with me routinely. So at this point in the COVID-19 pandemic, I can go a couple of days even without talking to anyone else here at work about anything of substance. I'm giving my lectures, and those have great substance, don't get me wrong, but I mean about the wider world and my feelings and my emotions and my thoughts and opinions and all of that. I think that's a reality for people that are home all of the time too, that life has gotten very quiet, and quiet can be great. Quiet also needs to be broken. So I think wherever you are, the uncertainty and the isolation are real, and we need to find ways to deal with them. From a neurobiological standpoint, physical distancing was never meant to mean social isolation. And we know from Genesis 1 that we weren't built for that. We know from decades of neuroscience research that it's physically not good for our brains to be socially isolated. So as this progresses, I think that's the next wave for me, is to figure out how to do my job and do it well, but do it a little bit less isolated. I hope your week has been well and that God blesses you richly.
Great There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to tear down, and a time to build. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain. A time to search, and a time to give up. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to mend. A time to be silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. This is a well-known passage that stresses the preciousness of time as a resource. It is painful but beneficial to come to grips with the truth that we simply do not have sufficient time while on this planet to accomplish all that our hearts desire to do and that we know we are capable of doing. We inhabit a space of 70 to 80 years. A few are blessed with living into their 90s, and even fewer number yet lived past 100. In this, we couldn't be more different than God. God is unlimited by time. He is free to act within time as he wills. He exists outside of time. He is the God of the past, present, and future. The past holds for him no missed opportunity. The present holds for him no anxiety. The future holds for him no uncertainty. He was and is to come. Ecclesiastes 3 tells us God's actions within time happens at just the right time. He is never early or late, never subject to the severity of a deadline. He is never in a hurry or playing catch up with a schedule that has careened out of control. We look at the timing of some of the events in our life, and we can't help but think that our timeless God may have dozed off. We could likely acknowledge that there is an appropriate time for everything. The time to heal is when someone is sick. The time to be silent is when I finished speaking my mind. And the time to die is at the end of a full life. But we see all around us where healing doesn't happen. We see birth and death presenting themselves at times they weren't meant to be. Our minds are tormented as we try to make sense of all of it. We really focus on Ecclesiastes 3:11 that says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the hearts of men, yet they cannot fathom what God has done from beginning to end." We look around at life and wonder, where is the beauty? We expect God to make everything beautiful in our timeline. The problem lies not with His timing, but with our perspective of it. We have a limited ability to understand how God works. He will work all things in according to His purposes in His time. We should not be surprised or discouraged to find we are at a loss to comprehend the timing of one who transcends yesterday, today, and tomorrow. In Psalm 90, Moses prayed that God would establish the work of our hands. Moses had grown old, seeing his entire generation wander aimlessly in the desert. For 40 years, the Israelites had roamed with no specific destination in sight. Moses cried out to God for some assurance of significance. Psalms 90:12 says, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." Unless we are gripped by life's brevity and place proper value on the time we have, no matter how long or short it is, we will never gain a heart of wisdom. We can use the skills and principles of time management and use a better scheduling system, but that will benefit us little until we understand the value of time. We may do a better job of scheduling our time, but that doesn't mean we're doing a better job of spending our time. Knowing the difference defines wisdom. According to Moses in Psalms 90:10, the years of our life quickly pass. As we grow older, we look back and wonder where the time has gone. Each of us are given a specific number of days. Are we spending those days wandering aimlessly with no goal or purpose in sight? Or are we numbering our days and thus gaining a heart of wisdom? On April 14th, 1998, my husband Vern lived his final day. He would have been 48 in June of that year. God didn't allow him 70 or 80 years, of which Moses speaks in Psalms 90. We aren't promised that. Any illusion that I had that our life would be long was removed. We were married 26 years. My children had their father until they were barely adults. This experience changed us. We know how quickly life is gone. I learned a perspective that many don't grasp until the aging process begins. My God taught me that many of the things that we spend our time doing and worrying about are really not important. What I learned is important is my time spent staying close to my children and giving them the best example I can of loving God and pursuing living each day well. God is able to bring eternal results from our time-bound efforts. Jesus tells us to store up treasures in heaven rather than on earth. This side of heaven, the only investment with eternal significance are people. Living this day well means prioritizing relationships over material gain.
O Lord, you have searched me, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You're familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you know it completely, O Lord. You hem me in, behind and before. You have laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain.
Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you.
For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book, before one of them came to be.
How precious to me are your thoughts, O God! If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake, and I am still with you. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God! O men of blood, depart from me. They speak against you with malicious intent. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with complete hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting.